Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Never before in the history of sports podcasts have two men brought you opinion and analysis like these two. They speak for a city that's desperate for wins and titles, not whining and travesty. You might not agree with what they have to say, but you'll defend their right to say it. Sports fans across the world, from Chicago, Illinois, this is the Mac and Read Show.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Mac and Read Show right here on the Barroom Network. Follow them on social media at Barroom Network and check out all the great programming on the network here. You can check our shows out on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. Of course, those last two, the audio only. If you want to see our face, you know where to go, to the YouTubes. Follow me on Twitter at @TheReal11Mac. Follow Ross at Ross Read. There he is, looking good, looking like Justin Fields on vacation or something. Oh, that was just off the top of the head. I wasn't even prepared for that, Ross.
I wish. Oh, to be 22-ish and not eat a lot of red meat and just walk out of bed and have abs and have a hat just so ever so gently sit at the top of your head and it doesn't move. I don't know how that hat never flies away, but he looks amazing. Shout out to Justin Fields for looking.
He's looking good, man.
Like a QB1 Adonis.
Peak offseason. He's got people swooning in the offseason here. We'll talk about that. We have a lot to get to on the show today, of course, talking about some Bears headlines. We got the over and under wins here. You work out on vacation like Justin Fields. We got Bulls news. The draft was last week, and then they got their guy. We'll go over the rest of the draft, and free agency is hitting like crazy already. Free agency is going to be next weekend. I should say tomorrow. A lot will happen as well with the future of Zach LaVine. Will be a little more clear too for Bulls fans as well. And then talking about July 4th around the corner here. So, we got to talk about our top 5 songs at the cookout and what foods are necessary. I'll give you my pairings. On the NBA tip, too, we were talking about it a little bit in the pre-show, but just Draymond and Russ and Kyrie going off with the media right now, sparring with the media. It's the offseason, so that's how it goes. Surprises along the way. But to begin, Ross, let's kick it off with some Bears. And the over and under wins is an interesting conversation as we review the schedule here.
It is, absolutely. So tweet today, I'm going to find the exact tweet here. Give me 2 seconds. But, the tweet came out today. It came from Ben Fox. Ben Fox works for, he's a VP of digital content for VSN Live. Basically, a gambling guy, Vegas based. And he dropped a tweet today saying the Chicago Bears under 6.5 wins is the most lopsided season win total bet at Caesars Sports so far this offseason. Over 95% of the bets are on the under, and nearly 18 times the money is on the under. So, a lot of people right now are hammering the under for that 6.5 for the Bears. And I think we've seen throughout the entire offseason from local media and national media, a lot of people are very bullish on this Bears roster. A lot of people think it's a bottom 5 roster. I know a lot of Bears fans have been pushing back this offseason and saying, they've improved and the coaching staff is going to get better. But, a lot of the sharps and some of the experts seem to think otherwise. And, it poses the question, is 6.5 wins a fair number to set the line at, right? Wasn't this team 6 wins last year or 7 wins last year? I don't even remember. I feel like such a long time ago.
It does.
Yeah, and where most importantly would you put your money, and how much would you wager on that?
Yeah, that's tough. Bears were 6-11 last year. Okay. So right there, that's where that's coming from. Yeah, so everything you said. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so can they pick up one win more than that team from last year, right?
Right. Well, that's the question, and there's some changeover. The defense is looking a little different. And then offensively, you think that they're going to take that next step. We'll talk about Justin Fields in a moment and what Cole Kmet had to say about him. And then you get more offensive firepower as far as your skill position players. You hope in a new head coach that something will come from that Eberflus is the guy. But in a first season, you kind of throw all of it out the window, all expectations. So, that's wild though. Under 6.6.5 right now, 6.5 is bananas. Looking at the schedule, San Francisco, those first 4 games are pretty telling, and they're pretty lopsided as far as, you think they could go 2-2 pretty much at that point with San Francisco, Green Bay, Houston, and New York. Right off the bat, San Francisco is a tough draw. You know how they played the Bears last year and how bad that Bears defense just gave that away. You think that defense will likely take a step in the right direction, but then you go to Green Bay and you just got to figure that that's a loss. Aaron Rodgers has had the Bears numbers for so long, even without Devontae Adams. Now we'll see what an adjustment that is for him and an older Aaron Rodgers, albeit. But yeah, I'd say life's too short to take the under. But man, with the Bears, with the expectations here, just looking at the losses, you figure Green Bay immediately, that's a loss. It looks like a better football team. Dallas, you look at Green Bay, you could lose both those games. You look at Philly, might be slightly edged too, and Buffalo. But a lot of these other games could be tossed. New England, that's a tough place to play as well. But a lot of these other teams don't really scare you. Houston is a mess. Minnesota, that Bears always play tough. New York, also a mess. I mean, chalk that up as a win, you would think. Washington, that's really just kind of a coin toss at that point. You look Miami, that's at home. That could be tough. 2 pretty similar teams with younger quarterbacks, and albeit, the Dolphins look like a step ahead as far as offensive firepower goes. But really, it'll come down to those NFC North games, and those are just so hard to predict as well as the season goes on. You think that Detroit and Minnesota, they're going to be the doormats. But again, Green Bay, that's almost 2 wins you got to give to the other side. It looks right around 5 or 6 to me if I'm the betting man right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing, right? Is I think number one, 6.5 is probably an accurate line where to put that at. And I say that because as a person who dabbles a little bit in gambling, I don't bet big money, but I do gamble and I look at lines and stuff like that. You want to be able to try and entice both sides of the argument to throw some money on, right? And right now, the money is coming in heavy on the under, right? But I think that's going to be able to change now, because when you throw something out there saying that over 95% of people are betting the under, that usually scares the shit out of people, and that scares the shit out of a lot of bettors, because usually when a big amount of people are so much on one side, we tend to see the opposite side, right? They don't build hotels in Vegas with not-for-profit money. That money comes in from the dollars that you've been giving them. So that right there, number one, it gives me a little bit of pause and hesitation to bet the under. I kind of wanted to go the opposite way on that. And then when you look on the other side, Bears, yes, their roster is in flux. It is up for grabs right now, in particular on the offensive side. Offensive line is still a question mark. We don't know what these wide receivers are going to look like until they hit the field. And you're banking a lot on your second-year quarterback, which is what you're supposed to do. He's a top pick for a reason, right? You want him to have all that pressure. But I say all that to say they do still play one of the easiest schedules in the league, right? You get the Lions twice this year. The Lions have a better team, but they're still the Lions. They're going to struggle. You got the Giants on your schedule this year. You got the Texans, who are a complete mess on your schedule this year as well. Even some of the games where I think are kind of toss-ups, the Dolphins have to come to Chicago in November, and that's going to be a difficult game for them to be able to travel to, right? The Bears get to see the Jets in November. I think those are very winnable games. I think 7 is exactly where I would put the Bears at right now. But for me to kind of go even further, I just think the Bears are going to be in a ton of one-score football games this year. And I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, right? When you're in 5, 6, 7, one-score football games all year, that could be either +4 or 5 wins or -4 or 5 wins, right? And so I think I would put the Bears right now as a baseline at 7 wins. It could easily go up to 9 wins. It could very much go down to 5 or 6 wins, but I would still put them at 7 wins right now, slightly trending up, just because I do think that Fields is going to take a major step forward with Getsy this year. I think people are underrating, Velus Jones and Darnell Mooney and what they're going to be able to do with Mooney and Herbert and be able to not have a number one wide receiver, but spread the football around evenly and really allow Justin Fields to just be the point guard of that offense. And I think that defense is going to be a top 10 defense. I love what they have on that defense right now, assuming Robert Quinn stays on this roster.
Yeah, that's an important piece to keep in mind with Robert Quinn there. And Jordan pointing out the Giants looks like a dub, Detroit twice, Houston, that is a mess. And then you play the Jets, you play Atlanta. It could be as many as 9 wins. I really do think that that's possible. I haven't watched a lot of the Colts D. I'm just waiting to see Eberflus as the Bears coach here. But I think that it's so tough to see this team or to have expectations for them to be a winning franchise when there's just a lot of turnover and it's a brand new system. So you set your expectations low, but from a gambling perspective, like what do you have to lose at that point when you're looking at the over? And with this schedule is so different from how the Bears schedule has been over the past several years, where they've just been beat to shit. Like it's just been so tough to watch with these, and they've been tight games every year too, but it's a whole new script. It's a whole new narrative with Eberflus and with this new staff too. And with Justin Fields with like a somewhat competent quarterback now at this point, it's really something to look out for as far as Fields' performance in the offensive line. Like that's just going to be so telling. You looked at it last year and he was just not good. And a lot of that you put in the system and the offensive line in front of him. So can that, just based on sort of preseason and based on training camp, like can that be solidified and can that give you the confidence to bet the over at this point? And even without it, you could say it because it's really an easier schedule. Like we talked about, Atlanta is just a mess right now. The Giants, both New York football teams, when you get to play them, that's 2 wins right there.
Yeah, it is. Of course, we can never factor in injuries and stuff like that come into play on both sides of the football, right? But, it's kind of like you said. I think that's a favorable schedule. I think the Bears are going to be in a lot of one score football games this year. I got like baseball in my mind for some reason. And we have to see if a guy like Justin Fields is going to be able to kind of put the team on his back. I always think of that San Francisco game from last year where he had that amazing touchdown run. We kind of, ran out of the pocket and was able to, elude massive tackles and put the Bears in a position to win that football game. And it was the defense that kind of gave it up for them. And I think the defense did that quite a bit last year. I don't think that's going to happen with a Matt Eberflus defense going forward this year. I watched a little bit of Colts, defense last year. It was very much a slam the door kind of defense. It was also a defense that put their offense in a ton of opportunities on a short field to be able to capitalize on some points. That's why you saw a guy like Jonathan Taylor last year be able to have an MVP type of run, even though he was a running back. And that defense did a lot. I think if the Bears don't have the receivers that the Colts did last year, I'm a huge Michael Pittman Jr. fan. But I do think that Justin Fields is better than Carson Wentz, and I think that if you can just utilize his talent and give him an opportunity on a short field to put some points up, I think the Bears should get to 7 wins, and it's going to be maybe really close. You might be sweating it out that last week or so. You finish up the season with 2 divisional games. You've got January 1st, New Year's Day. In Detroit, and then you've got also the week after that finishing up in Chicago. That's going to be a really chilly game, January 8th. But I feel pretty good about. You want to put $100 on the over? Go for it, man. And hopefully, early January 2023, you're cashing in on a pretty good bet and take that money and look towards a nice spring vacation somewhere.
There you go. It's a late bye week this year too, week 14 for the Bears, and then they go on a tough back-to-back with Philly and Buffalo, but both at home. So it's really a favorable schedule for the Bears. I think, again, like the conservative and the pessimist in me would take the under at this point, but why would you go with the majority? I think easily you could see a turnaround, and like Jordan was pointing out, this Colts D set up their offense so much, and Eberflus being defensive minded. We know from the history of just the Bears standpoint, Bears have just done so much better under a former defensive-minded coach. Look at Lovie Smith and just having someone like Vic Fangio around was just did that whole team so much better of a service than how the offense had just struggled. So now the questions are, is Justin Fields being compared to Jalen Hurts, or Carson Wentz or Marcus Mariota in the second year here, and with limited receivers? If he can make some noise with just Darnell Mooney and Velus Jones and some guys that he's picked up in free agency, then it's going to be super impressive to see what he has when he has a number one weapon like a Tyreek Hill or Devontae Adams, if he ever gets one, which is the goal at this point. I know losing Allen Robinson will be tough, even though he had no chemistry with him at all. Yeah. But going back to the main question here, I'd put that money on the over at this point.
Yeah, and those are names. I think Justin Fields is actually better than those quarterbacks going into his second year. Lamar Jackson very famously won MVP his second season. He was just absolutely electric out there. But why can't Justin Fields have a second season like Josh Allen did? Josh Allen for the Bills in 2019, that team goes 10-6, right? He throws for he has 461 passing attempts, so over 100 more than he had in his rookie season. He completes 58% of his passes. He throws for 3,000 yards, has 20 touchdown passes to 9 interceptions. Really good, touchdown to interception ratio right there. And then you look at him on the ground that year, he had 510 yards rushing on the ground. And, he had a couple touchdowns as well. Why can't he have that kind of season for the Bears in year two? When you look at that Buffalo Bills offense that year, especially their skill players, you had guys like Frank Gore, Devin Singletary, TJ Yeldon was on that football team as well. Cole Beasley, Zay Jones, Dawson Knox. These are not world beaters, right? These are very probably similar to what the Bears had or have right now in terms of skill players. And what was the difference? It was Josh Allen being more comfortable in his second season, and it is now New York Giants head coach Brian Daboll putting him and that team in the position to succeed. And so I think when you look at Luke Getsy, who maybe hopefully, fingers crossed, because that means he's having a good run with the Bears, could be a head coaching candidate down the line, I think that the relationship between Fields and Getsy is going to be really, really important to have Fields take that Josh Allen type step in year two. And I don't think it's out of the ordinary. And listen, 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. That's a very realistic line to expect from Fields, assuming he plays healthy all year. That's a 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. I'll take that all day.
Yeah, talking about Justin Fields, he's the buzz right now. Obviously, being number one, being the alpha for the Bears right now, and the next quarterback that hopefully will make some noise. We know that he threw more interceptions and touchdown passes, and he took his lumps as a rookie. He had a tough schedule, and I think you really do thrive on that as a guy like Justin Fields, and you look around the league with guys in a similar situation in their rookie year. Not everybody's going to have that just incredible year like a Pat Mahomes has, or guys who just come out of the gate just doing great work, or you're from the Aaron Rodgers type of background too, where you have a Brett Favre to learn from. He's going to have to really rely on Luke Getsy and his coach. And now you look at his teammates, I think that's very telling, where they're really supporting him. Cole Kmet saying, quote, "You just feel him in the huddle. He's not just repeating the play. He's telling you the play." And there's a difference in that. That gives me confidence as a player out in the field. He's talking to each guy. It's not just a repeat of play. He's telling us a play, which is a difference. He went on to say, Justin Jones, I should say, had this to say: he has a commanding leadership on the field, a legit field general. He gets guys wound up, gets guys going. And we saw this at Ohio State. We saw a little bit of what he could do last year. How could you not root for the young man and think that he would definitely thrive in this new look offense, even with sort of limited weapons around him, not all proven besides Darnell Mooney, which he had some chemistry with last year. But in the second year, it's going to make a big difference. And you put him out there for at least 80% of the schedule, he's going to make some noise. It goes back to what we talked about as far as his projections go. Now, is he going to throw for 4,000 yards? Maybe not, probably not. You would think on the under for that for sure. And is he going to throw 40 touchdowns? Most likely not. But he's going to do better than he did last year as far as those god-awful fumbles and those interceptions. And to that end, like what we've been talking about with their record, the defense is going to set them up better. The defense just collapsed in so many games last year and just didn't do the offense any favors. And now under Eberflus, you got to think that it's just going to be a completely different script for this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And not enough can be said about the fact that Justin. You take these kids and they come from college. He was in the college playoff last year, so his season was extended. Right, that season's over. He was coming off an injury. You remember he got hurt late in that college season last year. Right, then he has to prepare for the NFL draft. He's got to do all these workouts. He's got to do all these meetings. He's got to talk to different teams. You got to do this. You got to do that. You get drafted. It's a whirlwind. You got to go to Chicago. You got to find a house. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to show up to the Bears. You don't get number one team snaps, right? So you're watching, and you can't really get a feel for the offense and how things go because you have to watch Andy Dalton from behind. And fast forward to this year where it's like everything slows down. Now all of a sudden he knows he's QB1. He's got the offensive playbook. He knows his receivers. He can work out with them on the side, right? They can work on specific things that are within the confines of the offense. He doesn't have to worry about all the nonsense from going into last year. He can sit on wherever the hell he was at the other day. Look gorgeous on his freaking Instagram. Jesus Christ, I want to go there. Right? But he can ease his way into this training camp knowing that he is the QB1. He's going to get all the snaps. And I think going from being an amateur and that rush to being a professional can be a really taxing thing for young men. And then, oh, by the way, you're the quarterback, to now he's just a professional easing into the situation. I think that's going to put him in a lot more at ease, a lot more comfortability in handling the situation. And from a mechanics standpoint, we've already seen from minicamp and just photos and videos, he's tweaked his delivery. He's tweaked how he holds the ball, so I expect him to cut down significantly on the turnovers, especially the fumbles. And I expect them to be focusing on him getting the football out quickly and getting it to his receivers so they can go ahead and run with the football and get that yak for him.
For those that don't follow along, yard after catch. He was talking about, one of his teammates was talking about him throwing into the wind like 30 miles an hour. He's preparing for the elements. He's got to prepare for a whole new, it's a clean slate for him too. I think obviously the rookie year is just that. It's just when you take your lumps and just do the best you can and learn the speed of the game. And talking about how he had that sort of limited year or elongated year, I should say, with the college football playoff and then an injury added on to that. He's got to take care of his ribs at this point. Mm-hmm. The important question, Ross, is do you work out in the Dominican Republic like Justin does? You out there win sprints and is it like Rocky 3 basically? You run it on the beach?
So I am pro working out on vacation. It puts me in a much better mental, physical state. If I'm going to go ahead and hammer my body for 6 hours with alcohol or shitty food or whatever, if I'm going to the pool, I want to look my best. I'm 100%. I will be like in the gym or on the beach working out about 9-10 o'clock in the morning to prep myself for the day. Absolutely. I'm pro working out. I feel like it just sets the mood better. You feel so much better about having 17 daiquiris at a pool if you got to work out in. I'm actually a huge fan of the card workout. You ever heard of this workout before?
Oh yeah. Yeah, where you get like an ace and it's 13 burpees or some shit like that, basically.
Yeah. For those that don't know, you bring a deck of cards with you on your trip. Really easy. Throw it right in your bag, or you can download an app that has a deck of cards on it, and you assign a body weight exercise to each suit, right? So hypothetically, clubs could be push-ups and diamonds can be squats, right? Typically, you do an upper body, a lower body, a complex movement like a burpee, and then like a core ab workout. And then you just roll through the cards and you flip it over and you get 5 of diamonds, and that's 5 squats and so on and so forth. It's quick. It should take you no more than about 35 minutes. If you're doing it outside on the beach, it's a great sweat. It's a great workout. And you feel so much better about the rest of your day when you go on and do God knows what you're going to do to your body.
I don't know if I can do that in New Orleans, Ross, but I like the idea of it.
Yeah.
Sweltering.
Yes. I think last time I was in New Orleans and I did a workout, it was all like what am I gonna do to just like let my arms look good for the next like
Hey,
4 hours while I'm outside on Bourbon Street
oh
holding
yeah,
a Coors Light?
all chest, no legs. All right, anything else hot on the Bears right now for you, Ross?
No,
Before we move on,
I think we hit everything. I mean, we're in a holding pattern right now. I don't
sure.
think that we should try and force any news or information. We're in a big holding
No,
pattern right now until training camp
what
shows
happens?
up. You just hope that everybody gets to camp safely, right? I think we already had one situation last week when we got off the air about the
The
linebacker for the
linebacker with
Colts
the weapons
with,
charge.
with the gun not being registered. Whatever.
He's cut.
That's small potatoes, right? You just hope that nothing serious, else happens, and we get all these guys to camp soon out in Lake Forest, and and we can really see kind of what's going on there and see this team kind of really gel and come together.
It's lit. All right, Ross.
Yep.
Talking about the Bulls, the offseason started off with the bang. First round pick, Dalen Terry out of Arizona, got drafted number 18th overall by the Bulls, 6'7" guard out of Arizona. Hopefully make some noise off the bench right away. I like the pairing of him and Io. That'll be fun. But already, he has some Chicago love with the Benji Wilson number 25, and a nod to Steve Kerr at that too. Did you like the pick? I like a lengthy guard. I probably would have liked something more in the front court, but it is what it is. I think I like the length of him. He's kind of that prototypical athletic like swingman that you're looking for.
Yeah, he's a 3D guy that you need right now. He's got more D pause than he does three. So that you hope that he's able to work on his 3-point game a little bit, but he still shot at close to 40% in college. But he's a long defender, like you said. He's going to be able to disrupt the passing game and get into the lanes and cause chaos. Most importantly, it's one of the things that the Bulls really need, not only in the immediate future but going forward, especially because Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan are average to subpar defenders. And if you watch the Bucks last year, everybody was always concerned about Giannis, and going to the paint and scoring at the paint. When in reality, it was the 3-point game that killed the Bulls last year, right? Even with Middleton after he got hurt, you still saw guys like Grayson Allen go off. You saw guys like Bobby Portis go off, and other players. And so you have to be able to defend the 3-point line if you want to go far in the playoffs. We saw the last two teams standing with the Boston Celtics and the Golden State Warriors. That was a 3-point barrage, right? And the Warriors were able to win an NBA title because they were able to shoot the ball better down the stretch than the Celtics. So, the Bulls got themselves a quality, young man. He seems to have got that dog in him a little bit, right? He came in, he knew about Chicago and he knew about Benji Wilson, which, if you're 35 plus years old, even if not, you just know Benji Wilson and how special he was to Chicago, and that he's the reason why every superstar player out of Simeon wears number 25. And I thought it was really cool for him to adapt that and also honor former Arizona Wildcat Steve Kerr, who also, of course, won rings here in Chicago as well. But I like the pick. I think it's an excellent pick. I think now it kind of sets up the Bulls to really attack free agency with a couple better needs, a rim running, a rim protecting, rim running big, and hopefully they can add another 3-and-D guy as well.
I like him being an all defensive team member back too, and I know Nomad, one of our players, was talking about him being a gym rat. He's got a lot of, and I'm spinning. There it is. And I think he fits really well with Billy Donovan's sort of philosophy and his offense and defensive strategy there. It's like you talked about to lead off, Ross, how he's got a lot of length to him, and it'll be very telling to see how he develops. Of course, it's a very 3-point heavy league. The Bulls aren't going to shoot it like the Warriors, but they got to take those steps forward. And on the note of Dalen Terry, they think that fills a big need, but big question now is these rumblings, and I don't think you believe any part of Zach LaVine leaving being a potential reality, Ross, but him as an unrestricted free agent would be just, I think, devastating for this team with the negotiating period starting up tomorrow. It's a lot to be said for the Bulls' negotiating position as far as them offering more money than any other team. I think it's about like $212 million, something like that, for a max deal. He could get 150-ish from another team, say a contender, whoever would need Zach LaVine at that point. But he'd surely get a max deal, I would think. And then Could he be swayed by another contender? I don't know, but I think everybody in that Bulls organization, of course, AK has no other choice but to remain firm and saying we're hoping that Zach is here for a long time and that nothing has changed. And you would also assume that Zach has built so much chemistry with these guys as far as last season goes, and he's seen the ups and downs of it, and he sees that the ups and the potential that this team has, how they didn't have a full season with their roster fully healthy, and just the chemistry that him and DeMar had, and then just building around that and having everybody healthy and building on what they did last year. There's a lot to be said for that. He's got to stay around if I was a betting guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Zach LaVine's not going anywhere. Listen, I think we already have come to resign to the fate that he will sign that max deal with
This
the
is
Bulls.
that off season of all these storylines of these superstars leaving too, and it's not going to happen.
He's not leaving money on the table. He's not going anywhere else to be the second or third guy on that team. I don't listen. A couple of things with Zach LaVine. Number one, nobody else can give him that 5 years over $212 million. And I say it's over $212 million today because we found out earlier this afternoon that the cap is actually going up 10%, which means that max contracts also go up 10%. So Zach makes an extra $2 or $3 million a year on his max deal now. So he's definitely not passing that up. Also, as great as DeMar DeRozan was last year, I can't think that he's going to replicate that. He's getting a little bit up there in age. I still think he'll be really good, but you kind of need Zach to ascend a little bit more. And I think he's going to be the more dominant figure going forward as DeMar starts to get a little bit older. But I like what you said, which is I know a lot of people were quick to try and break this core up. I was like all in on trading Vooch and stuff like that. But there's something to be said about having some continuity, especially in the NBA. Look how many swings it took the Boston Celtics to with that core group that they had to finally even get to the NBA Finals, right? It's really, really tough. And I think a lot of people wanted to trade Jaylen Brown early on and break up Tatum and Brown, and they stuck with it. They made some tweaks to the roster. Brad Stevens humbly went upstairs and had Emi Udoka, be the coach. And look, they made it to the NBA Finals, and they should be one of the favorites to go back there again next year. But they have that continuity. And I would like to see the Bulls have Patrick Williams healthy for a year. He's only like 20 or 21 years old. I'd like to see what Zach looks like healthy. I'd like to see if Lonzo Ball can come back healthy as well. And I'd like to see if they can add a rim protecting big man to allow Vooch to kind of play a little bit out in space, and kind of freelance a little bit more. And let's see what they have. And listen, if at the end of this year it doesn't look great or something like that, we can kind of reassess things and tweak the roster again. But it does start with Zach LaVine. He's an all-star. He's one of the top 25 best players in the league. And you can't let those kind of guys go, especially where they're not even 30 years old.
You talked about DeRozan not replicating last season. He's had a lengthy and solid career thus far, last year being one of his best years. But it's Zach LaVine's team. You ask anybody on that roster, DeMar himself, too, will tell you the same thing.
And he's not getting signed and traded. He's not getting traded anywhere. There's nobody that's going to be able to match him value for value. You can't trade him to the Lakers. The Bulls are not taking Russell Westbrook's contract back. You can't trade him anywhere else. Zach LaVine will be a Bull next year. There's no, we've been talking about this for weeks. That question, the comment was brought up weeks ago. Zach LaVine will be on the Bulls roster come end of October, November when they tip off for the regular season.
Even if he's not sold on the team, you take the money, man. This is a very money-driven league. He's got to. No question there. Do you like, so all that you talked about a rim protector? I feel like there's a lot of buzz around Mo Bamba and some guys. These Bulls are still in the market for a big guys who would be rotational, who would be kind of the antithesis of Vooch, where Vooch just looks to score first, and God, he just better have a fucking better season than last year. But would you like a Mo Bamba or someone like that coming to the Bulls eventually?
So here's the thing, right? They don't have a lot of money to play with, right? I think after you get Zach LaVine and you get all these guys on the contract, they're going to be above the cap. I do think that the Bulls are going to play in the luxury tax game to be able to sign some of these guys is fine. They renounced Troy Brown Jr. today, so they have his money to be able to work with. But if you're looking at their mid-level exception, they've got about $10 million to work with. They could trade Kobe White, which could free up another $8 million if they're able to find a suitor for him. But when you're playing with that kind of money, you're looking at guys like possibly, yes, Mo Bamba is a guy that doesn't look like he's going back to the Orlando Magic, especially after they drafted Paolo Banchero last week, and he's definitely a guy that you can look at. Isaiah Hardenstein is another name that you can look at, a big guy from the Clippers right now. He's been an emerging big for them. He's not necessarily a big rim protector, but he does do a lot of the dirty work underneath the rim, especially offensively. A guy I like is Jalen Smith a lot. He's a top 10 pick from Phoenix just 2 years ago, and Phoenix just kind of dumped him and gave up on him, and he had a nice rebound resurgent season with the Pacers last year. He's an unrestricted free agent. He's just a super young kid, very raw, but ultra talented. Why not take a flyer on a guy that was a top 10 pick just 2 years ago? You could, I don't think they're going to be able to find enough money from Mitchell Robinson from the Knicks, but if the Knicks decide that they don't want to re-sign him, he's a guy that would be fit perfect right next to Vucevic on that front line. So the Bulls got some options. I know they're going to try and really get aggressive with this. They're going to try and find a guy. They might even try and finagle a couple trades and deals and maybe pull out like John Collins from Atlanta, because Atlanta got DeJounte Murray today, and now Atlanta has a little bit of a glut on their roster. They've got to move some guys like Bogdanovich and probably Collins. I would love to take John Collins with the Chicago Bulls because I am a huge fan of his. But they've got some options, and they need a 3-and-D guy too, like a veteran, a guy like a Gary Harris or something like that who can come in, who knows his role. Unfortunately, Caltavius, Pope was traded today. I thought he would have been a perfect fit, but Gary Harris definitely fits that mold. Gary Harris famously was drafted by the Bulls and then was traded on draft night in the Doug McDermott trade, which is just an absolutely brutal trade for the Bulls. So it would be kind of serendipitous if we saw Gary Harris come back to or come to Chicago, back to the team that originally drafted him.
Oh, Dougie McBuckets. What a fucking travesty that was, for sure. We talk about free agency. Bobby Portis maybe coming back. Come on, Bobby. Come on back to Chicago. I know Bulls fans are just praying that AK try to take a swing at him. But talking about free agency, you touched on it. Hawks trading Danilo Gallinari and multiple first-round picks to the Spurs for DeJounte Murray. That's a nasty backcourt right there of Trae Young and Murray. That's some firepower right there. That might be just what Atlanta needs. Atlanta in the play-in games and kind of a fringe. They're always kind of that fringe 8 seed. You're waiting for Trae Young to take that step in the rest of that team. But that's a great move for Atlanta.
It is a great move. I'm a huge DeJounte Murray fan. He was the guy that actually wanted last year the Bulls to go and trade instead of signing Lonzo Ball. I just felt like he was going to have that all-star potential, and he made the all-star team last year. So I'm a huge DeJounte Murray fan. I think that is a steep price to pay for him. Would they give up 4 first-round picks, right? By the time they probably trade John Collins this weekend, and they might have to trade Bogdanovich as well, that makes you 5th, 6th in the Eastern Conference. And I think to give up, 4 first-round picks to still be 5th or 6th in the Eastern Conference, it doesn't really do much for me. I'm also not a huge Trae Young fan. I think he's too ball dominant. The guy has a higher usage rate in the league than Steph Curry. He ain't Steph Curry. And he's also 3rd in the league in turnovers as well. He just has a poor shot selection down the stretch. I don't like building my teams around 6'2", 6'3" guards that again are not Steph Curry, and he's not that. So I'd be curious to see the fit with those two guys. Yep, and who's gonna is Trae gonna be able to play more off ball? Because I don't think that. I just don't think that Trae's going to do that. I think he's really stubborn in that regard. But it's going to be interesting to see how it works out. There's going to be so much, I think, really small to intermediate movements like that. I don't expect anything big, but, some sneaky thing happened today. I saw that, James Harden, decided to not renew that deal because he wants to restructure the deal and take less money and free up more money for Philly, which means they probably have something cooking too. They might have a Tobias Harris trade on the works to maybe bring in another star that makes a little bit more money. So there's going to be some things that are going to be moving and shaking, starting tomorrow, 5 p.m. Central Time. Yes, Malik Monk is a free agent. I'm a big Malik Monk fan. You just got to move Kobe White first before you are able to bring in Malik Monk, because they become very redundant with each other.
Yeah, the bigger news, if you look at it, was Bradley Beal declining his option with the Wizards and becoming a free agent, where he can sign a 5-year max deal with the Wizards, or he can sign with another team similar to Zach LaVine type of thing. But it could be very much the same thing, man. What even before all this, we're seeing now John Wall teaming up with Kawhi and Paul George. I don't even know how that's going to work, but on paper, that's like, ooh. It's nasty. That's like when the Nets had who did they have? Paul Pierce and KG and
Right.
Else. Yeah. I don't know. It could just blow up in their face.
It could. I mean, you look at John Wall, right? I mean, he hasn't played in about 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah,
he hasn't played a full season since 2016, which is absolutely just bonkers to think about. But when John Wall is on, he's one of the most dynamic players in the league. I'm pretty sure he's lost about 2 or 3 steps since then, but why not bring John Wall in off the bench for 15, 20 minutes a night at $6 million a year? I think that's a bargain for the Clippers. You still have Reggie Jackson on that team who's going to be able to start for you. And if you could bring John Wall in to help with your second unit and provide some scoring and some distribution to your other players, and take a lot of the primary, that Clippers team before they got hurt, it was a lot of Kawhi, handling the ball, and it was a lot of Paul George. But that takes a lot of energy out of your star players. You put a guy like John Wall on the court that's really comfortable handling the basketball, that allows those guys to kind of, take some breaks and be able to set themselves in a better position. So good for them. Circling all the way back to gambling, the Clippers before that move, I don't know where they're at now, but they were plus 650 to win the NBA Finals. That's not a bad bet if you want to take a look at that right now, because I figure, you figure they'll probably have 1 or 2 more moves in them to try and, bolster that roster. It's go time for them, because both these guys are approaching free agency again, and you could lose both those guys. They traded like 17 picks to even get Paul George there. They got to do something this year, especially as they're building that new building out in Crenshaw, I think they're building it at. Otherwise, the Clippers are going to be in deep trouble.
Crenshaw. Yeah, I think it is. Again, you talk about the age of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. That's big. And Steve Ballmer was super jacked about it, though. I know that. That's for sure. Recapping the draft, we saw that Paolo Banchero from Duke jumped the other 2 top prospects. And jumping Chet Holmgren, the twig, and Jabari Smith. Paolo going to the Magic, Holmgren and Smith going to the Thunder and Rockets, respectively. You got a favorite for Rookie of the Year? Just judged on that. Paolo Banchero is nasty. He's really snuck in last minute, you feel like. But, man, I mean, besides the Magic wasting away, I know Shaq wants to come in and own the team and run them like he did back in the day. But you can count Banchero out as Rookie of the Year at all.
Paolo didn't even work out individually for the Magic, and they still took him. So that was quite a bit of a surprise right there. It had been Jabari Smith leading all the way up until the draft night. But I think Paolo Banchero is the best player in the draft. I think he's got a lot of Rasheed Wallace in him. A big guy, 6'9", 6'10", who could be able to handle the basketball, but who could be physical in the post, and he could shoot the basketball as well. I'm a huge fan of his. I think I like that team a lot. They got Franz Wagner on that team. They drafted Jalen Suggs last year as well, the point guard from Gonzaga. So I think drafting Banchero was the right move. My Rookie of the Year, Jaden Ivey, I think, is got the potential to be the most explosive player in the draft, very quickly. He's the point guard from Purdue. He's going to Detroit now. He's going with a guy named Cade Cunningham, who was the number 1 overall pick last year. And all of a sudden, Detroit's got something cooking, man. You got to watch that team, because they've got a nice young nucleus there, and those guys can score. And I think Cade Cunningham, unlike Trae Young, is really good playing off ball. And Ivy's got some John Morant in him. He was coached by John Morant's ex-coach, and he's tight with that whole thing. He's got some jaw in him, man. And if Cade and Ivy can put some things together, it's a scary team going forward, man. Good for Detroit, because it's been a long time since that team has been good. You harken back to the Chauncey Billups days and Ben Wallace and Tayshaun Prince.
That's the last time they've been good. One of that dynasty there with the Larry Brown and company. Yeah, that was an insane time for Detroit. They deserve better, but they don't really. Detroit was still stuck. You talked about John Morant, and this leads to the best part of NBA free agency: the superstars going at the media. And Kendrick Perkins is beefing with Draymond and Russell Westbrook beefing with Skip as well. Kyrie fighting with Stephen A. Smith about the world being flat. I'm just kidding. We'll talk about what he said in a minute. But the only one coming out is Draymond. And I had a little a soundbite of him talking about one of his favorite moments with Skip Bayless.
Speaking for yourself, did you have a favorite fuck you?
My favorite fuck you was my daughter sitting on the side of the float like that was my favorite during the parade. My favorite since the parade and all of this is Skip Bayless. Everybody agree? Like, fucking guy sucks.
Just saying what a lot of sports fans are thinking there. But why poke the bear? I don't understand this in the offseason. Like, I get it, Draymond, like, especially a guy who has a podcast is going to go like this. But Kyrie should know better and Russ should know better than to go at these guys who just dissect players like them for a living and coming off just shitty seasons for both of them and seasons where Kyrie, obviously had the big red flag of him not taking the vaccine, and then Russ just being one of the worst three-point shooters and just an awful addition to that Lakers roster. The only guy winning here, if there's a winner, I suppose, is Draymond, because he's still going on a podcast tour with JJ Redick and still getting the hits on that. And he already came off the championship, but these other guys got to be losing.
Absolutely. And this is what Skip Bayless wants out of you guys. He wants you to drive this kind of attention and traffic to his show, right? This is exactly what he wants. If you know about, Skip Bayless started off in Chicago, basically, as a columnist for the Tribune. And he was a pretty straight and narrow columnist for a long time, where he didn't have any hot takes or anything like that. He actually wrote, big quality content. It was Skip Bayless, and then you had Rick Morrissey, and you had guys like Jay Mariotti, who, funny enough, Jay Mariotti was basically the guy that assumed the Skip Bayless role from back then. And then Skip kind of rose to fame and kind of was able to get on TV, and he worked on his shtick a little bit, and he's kind of like the sports Howard Stern a little bit right now. And every time you fuel that fire, that's exactly what he wants and what he's looking for. And so, I do. I love Draymond. I love his personality. I love everything about him. I'm fine with Draymond saying that. I think Draymond can. If Draymond's a 4-time champion, then Draymond's going to go in the Hall of Fame. Draymond is also really awesome on his podcast. I think he's going to have a great home in the media going forward. The Kyrie stuff bothers me. And the Kyrie stuff bothers me because he deserves any and all the smoke that comes his way. And the other thing that bothers me about Kyrie is he's quick to say, well, you're not allowed to comment on us and our likeness and this and that. Like, that's sports, bro. That's what sports has been
comes
for
with the territory.
Decades now, from Howard Cosell back in the day to so on and so forth. It's what you sign up for when you get in the business. It's why you can opt into a $36 million deal this year, because there's so much eyes and attention on you as an athlete. If those eyes and attention weren't on you, we can go back to the NBA where it was tape delayed games and nobody even knew who was playing, and you were getting pennies on the dollar. So it kind of comes with the territory, right? I think Draymond is able to have a little bit more fun with it and to take it more in stride. And I think Kyrie, as with everything, takes everything just too goddamn serious and personal, and it's always me against the world, and it's really not, bro. And this world is one big circle. Your world, you might be able to fall off it one day, and we might not see you again. So enjoy it. Enjoy this time and the spotlight while you have. Because you never know what's going to end for you. And I think Kyrie came into this league as such a lovable guy out of Duke, and really has just become a really a huge villain and an asshole over the last couple of years. I'm not a fan at all. He's such a talented basketball player too. That's a shame.
Right. And coming off the narrative of him going to play with LeBron and being the reason where LeBron won a championship in Cleveland, largely, I feel like if he doesn't have LeBron, that's huge. Mm-hmm. But now, again, the anti-vaccine stuff, I get your stance, but you're hurting your teams type of thing. And then the flat earthing stuff is just boggling my mind. And now to pick fights, like, why do this when you're under the microscope that much more as a superstar? And there's already so much expectation with this Brooklyn Nets squad if they can even compete for a championship, because they lost last year real quick in this what was it, the second round to
Mhm.
Boston this
First
past
round.
season.
First round. They got
First
swept.
round, yeah.
The only
Yeah.
team that gets swept in the playoffs this
And to
whole
be
year.
swept. Thank you, Ross. Yes, I mean that's just shitty. And Russ, this has been Russ's personality for a while too.
Yeah,
But,
same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Same
But
thing
Skip
with him.
Bayless,
It's like, bro, you've been garbage. You hit the side of the
you're
backboard.
trash. Go,
But
yeah,
you're
go
getting a-
respond with your play.
Yeah, you're getting a $47 million check right now, and so you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. And with Russell Westbrook, to me, it's like here's a guy who has clearly lost a step or two, but he hasn't evolved. He hasn't changed his game. He hasn't been willing to say that I am this kind of different player now. He hasn't taken a John Wall approach, right, to things, and so he hasn't humbled himself. And so also you're going to get that kind of smoke too when you still act this way.
Stephen A. will fight all your uncles, Kyrie, except he will not fight Rod Strickland in supporting you.
I wouldn't fight Ross Strickland. He's from Chicago.
Hell no. Hell no. Speaking of guys I wouldn't fight, this was a story I saw as we go to the random shit that Evan reads during his workday. Mike Tyson said he was on shrooms for his Roy Jones Jr. fight in 2020. What? I know it was an exhibition, but good Lord, if he wasn't medicated, he probably would have killed Roy Jones Jr., right? I mean,
think so.
He said he wished he took more mushrooms during his career, like in his prime too. I could not imagine that. I like talk about taking the edge off. If I take mushrooms, the last thing I want to do is be in a confined space in a ring, bright lights, many cameras, and I got to fight someone. Like fuck that. What? That's your idea of tripping and having a good time? Mike Tyson's nuts though.
He is nuts. Shout out to Mike Tyson though. I wanted he has that new line of edibles now that are shaped like ears.
Yeah.
From the Mike Tyson Holyfield. I wish they were selling those now in the dispensaries in Chicago because I would love to try one.
That's a good move by him. Covers making the rounds, Ross. You remember Alien Ant Farm's cover of Smooth Criminal?
I do.
Oh man, actually, it was a pretty good cover.
It's almost blasphemy to admit that, but it is actually a good cover.
That's what I'm saying. It's a weird cover that you wouldn't expect, but the shit still slaps. So, what's your favorite unexpectedly good cover?
Ooh,
I can give that. I think of some great covers right away.
What is the cover that Disturbed did? Do you know who Disturbed is?
I know who Disturbed is.
Yeah. And they did what is that? Is it Sound of Silence, right? Is that the name of the song? It's yeah, absolutely. It's an absolutely just brilliant cover. Sound of Silence is an amazing song. I'll look up who did the song initially, but Disturbed did a Simon and Garfunkel song originally, and then Disturbed did a cover, and it is creepy. It's a little dark, but it is an absolutely cool cover. So that would be my just out of nowhere holy shit cover songs.
It's funny you took that turn because when I was thinking this over, I'm like, God, Johnny Cash when he did "Hurt," the 9 Inch Nails song, that was a really good turn and just very eerie and Johnny Cash towards the end of his career too. But also, don't forget the Candy Shop by Dan Finnerty of the Dan Band that was made popular in the movie The Hangover. I think he was in Drake's one of his new videos too, doing a cover of Drake, of course.
Yes. Probably the most favorite one of all. The most famous one of all time is probably Whitney Houston, right? "I Will Always Love You."
Yeah.
She took that from Dolly Parton, which who wrote and sang that song in a movie called "The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas." Shout out Dolly Parton.
Shout out to Dolly Parton. Still.
Yeah. Marilyn Manson, "Tainted Love."
That's a good one too. Yeah. Nirvana covering David Bowie. There's just so many good, that they cross genres, and you go back to one of the best covers, Bob Dylan, "All Along the Watchtower," covered by Jimi Hendrix, and that was just mutual respect for a lot of them. But then, you see there's like a guy who does sort of swing covers of like WAP and shit like that. I love that. I get off on that. That's great for me. All right, Ross, 4th of July around the corner here. Oh, by the way, though, Ross mentioned on Twitter, and it's been trending. We have to say our piece to Rotten Hell, R. Kelly. I haven't played your shit in a long time. You disgusting human being. You're getting sentenced to 30 years. You should die in prison. Go fuck yourself, R. Kelly.
100%.
Yeah. But moving on to the grilling and cookout season is officially underway. It's been underway for like the last month, but man, with 4th of July around the corner, you got some hip hop barbecue going. You got your classic rock going. Depends on your meal, perhaps what you throw on the grill. But give me your impressions, Ross. Some of the top things here in your top 5 of grilling and music combos.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the food stuff. I love hot dogs, Polish, anything like that. You can never be, a good old fashioned. You stick with the basics for me when it comes to meat. Yeah, the hot,
Yeah.
the burgers are fine. If you want to slow cook some ribs and stuff like that. Sides wise, I love potato salad. You like potato salad?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I'm a huge
Good
potato
potato
salad.
salad. Yeah.
Huge corn on the cob fan that's been put on the grill and grilled veggies and stuff like that as well. And I can even do like some baked beans. I'm a huge fan of that. Music wise, some of the honorable mentions for me. I feel like you can kind of go all over the map with music. This is how we do it. Montel Jordan feels like it's like a huge classic, like just outside, cookout song. Outcast, So Fresh and So Clean, jumps
Sure.
out to me as well, right? But my top 5 or 5 songs I got to play at a cookout. These are in no discernible order. Even though it's summertime, Earth, Wind, and Fire, September has to be played at a cookout. Has to be played
That's
at
a
a
good
cookout.
one. That's a good
Has to
one.
be played at a cookout. Frankly, Beverly and Mays, Before I Let Go, is another song that has to be played at a cookout for me. Beyonce, coincidentally, since we're talking about covers, did a cover of that a couple years ago. It's not good. Play the original version from frankly Beverly and Mays,
Some
please.
covers are better than most.
Yes. Outstanding from the Gap Band is another huge
Yeah,
just
yeah, there you
70s funk song for me. It's got to be played at a cookout. And then the last 2, from my childhood, Belle Biv DeVoe, Poison.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
have,
Nothing
and
wrong with
then
that.
Slap or No Slap, Summertime from Will Smith. Better
Yeah.
be played at your cookout. It is number 1
For sure.
cookout song of all time.
Yep.
I will occasionally throw in the West Coast mix. So I feel like you can really get a lot of Doggy Style on there and a lot of the Chronic, like a lot of like Let Me Ride, like just those old school 90s LA songs, even the NWA songs, the Eazy-E songs, they sound so good when you're outside and you're sipping on a beer. It just reminds me so much of just like that whole scenery and the vibe and the videos of those guys being outside and everybody's got the car shows and stuff like that. So I can do a whole separate just LA gangsta music, just set 90s gangsta music.
Right. That could be a playlist in itself. And I think, you're looking at what to put on the grill. I could just say kebabs, anything like you throw some good onions, some pepper on there and your meat of choice, whether it's chicken or shrimp, like anything good like that. As far as like the classic rock goes, I feel like 4th of July and cookout screams the Eagles, and it screams to me like Creedence, a lot of Creedence when you get John Fogerty singing, and Fortunate Son will be played just so much more this weekend than any other weekend during the year, and playing Born on the Bayou. I love Creedence, fantastic. Getting some good steaks on the grill. You put some skirt steak on there, maybe some strip. Don't do a ribeye. That's just for you. You're hosting people. No, you wouldn't do a ribeye. Absolutely not. I think you talked about smoking, like we usually do something smoked, like a pork shoulder or something like that. You could definitely slow cook some ribs. It'd be fantastic. I'd say on the music tip too, like Snoop Dogg, as you touched on, and Tupac, just some of the most playable music in a barbecue setting, just so good. I think All About You is always a good song to blast there. That's just got the buzz beat and coming down like that.
I got 5 on it from the Loonies.
I got 5 on it. Yeah, Snoop, like Gin and Juice, just great. The encased meats. The encased meats are going to be the star of the show, whether it be brats or hot dogs. But you got a good burger there. You get a good cut of meat. That's going to be great.
Give me some White Soul too. Give me like some Doobie Brothers and some Hall and Oates. I'm with that
White
too.
Band, perhaps. Yeah. Absolutely. Some Hall and Oates. There you go. I've been big into Migos recently too. I feel like Migos has a place there too. Migos, I've enjoyed what Offset and Takeoff do in their downtime in Quavo. Oh my God.
Quavo's only good.
Ross.
85 degrees and up, right?
Hilarious, man. Like we talked about in our top 5 hip hop albums, podcast and show. Biggie, man, you got to have Hypnotize in there. You got to have Juicy.
Yes.
Mercy.
Absolutely. I was gonna say One More Chance always felt like a summer anthem for me as well. So like One More Chance is like it will always hit perfectly at the summer cookout.
Yeah, that's a really good one for sure. Yeah, on that note, I hope you have a good 4th of July out there, the longer weekend. You get some time off. And I know Ross is looking for a coconut cake.
I am looking for a coconut cake in Chicago.
Someone give him a recommendation.
Right now, I'm contemplating Bonbon in Pilsen, which we know about from our old stomping grounds. But if you've got any thoughts or ideas, if you hit me up, this could be an ad. So if you want me to eat it on the next show, I am more than willing to. I'm looking for a coconut cake. Everybody be safe. Go get your fireworks illegally from Indiana. That is okay. Support their economy. But here's my Jason Pierre-Paul PSA. Just watch your fingers. Watch your fingers this weekend. Do one of the light the fire and then run immediately. Don't sit there and look at the firework to see why it's not coming out, because you could end up in the ER this weekend. That's not a good look.
Yeah, better safe than sorry. Don't be a statistic in the ER for 4th of July at all. As all those pulling up fucking videos of people blowing their fingers off.
Yeah,
everybody be safe out there. Eat some good food. Spend some time with family. Oh Lord, look at that. Remember to catch all of our previous shows and all the great programming on the Barroom Network, YouTube. Check out the audio versions on Spotify, iTunes as well. Follow me on Twitter at @TheReal11Mac. Follow Ross at Ross Read. Everybody be good to each other out there. Happy 4th of July. So long.
Absolutely. Peace.